NAC.com, welcome back. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Gene Hoglan here has been gracious enough to give us more of his time. Uh, Night one, Baby Clock, how did it go?
It was fantastic. We're here at the Masonic up in San Francisco, and last night was killer. Had a great show, and it was real nice reuniting with all the baby metal folks. They're all so nice and very sweet and awesome. And their band is killer,
Yeah,
they put on a really entertaining show, and so it was Dragon Force and Baby Metal and DETHKLOK, and so Dragon Force, very entertaining band as well. So it's a great night of entertainment all around, totally. And I think everybody left here with a big smile on their face. So that's pretty cool.
very cool. I've seen some clips of Baby Metal. I've not like actually seen one of their shows, but man, that's like out of this world. Like the fans so into it, like and the choreography that the girls put on and the music, it's like really well written. It's just like a total package, but it's just I don't know, insanely out of this world.
I'll admit it is surprisingly heavy. I mean,
Mm.
of course, they have the pop elements to it, but the metal is, some serious action there on a lot of their stuff. So that's pretty cool. So if you can have an open mind and understand the melding of both, then
Yeah.
it's pretty fun for folks involved, definitely.
Uh, kind of on that topic, through all the times that you've toured with bands and played with so many, what band or two like stands out to you with kind of whether it was like the rabid fan base or just the crazy like stage a show? Like, do any names stand out to you?
Well, there's this little band called Slayer. When you're on the road with Slayer, man, that is just a next level event kind of thing. Their fans are so into it. And that's really fun. And you're doing okay if you don't get that Slayer, Slayer during your band set. So
Yeah,
fortunately, I've been in enough bands that have played with Slayer and we don't get that chant. So that's pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah. It's hard. It's
That's
hard
our
to be an opening band playing for Slayer. I've heard. Yeah,
Right? Yeah,
yeah,
man. They'll brutalize you right off the stage
yeah,
there, and that's always entertaining. And I mean, like say touring with like Metallica and seeing how that is all of us we are all here. Whatever
yeah.
little levels of down here. Then Metallica is that is Rolling Stones, U2,
Sure.
Bruce Springsteen. So that is seeing that enormity of a production and the amount of folks that they have on their crew, 150 folks on their crew. And like DETHKLOK is fortunate enough to have, we have one of the guys that works for Metallica, Frankie Orange, as our tour manager, and he was with them for many, many years. And when I toured with Metallica, decade and a half ago, really, he was a part of that run. So we've got some of that pro-mindedness and super sharpness here on the DETHKLOK, and bands like that, and obviously Metallica, they're say no more kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And just on a side Bay Area metal note, I was texting with Gary Holt this morning, and
Right on.
he had to let me know that today, the day that we are doing this interview, is I would imagine it's the 39th anniversary of Bonded by Blood's release.
No, no shit.
And it's also Paul Bailoff's birthday. So happy
uh,
birthday to our
Apollo.
metallic brother,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Bailoff. Yeah,
yeah.
what a legend he is. And I was telling Gary that, well, happy birthday to us all of us
Sure.
metalheads, because that was a birthday gift to
Mhm.
all of us,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was telling the amount of necks and bodies you left in your wake with that record, like thank you for that release, brother, because
Yeah,
that's an OG, and
yeah.
that album was recorded so long before it got released. It was. I was telling him, yeah, hey, Gary, I was one of those guys that had the advance of it back in fall of
Yes.
'84. That was recorded like 9 months before it got released. That would have come out late summer '84, early fall '84, and been but it's still an OG record, Bonded by Blood. I mean,
Yeah.
he just
Yeah.
such a genre shaping and defining album, totally. So very
Totally,
happy
totally. I
on it.
happened to be watching, it was like yesterday or the day before, Murder in the Front Row, the
Right?
documentary that came out. And yeah, Gary Holt and like the Hawaii Bay Area thrash and talking to like Gary, Exodus and like the Kirk Hammett relation and he was there and like
Absolutely.
man, I feel like I grew up in the wrong era, man. Like I'm like 10 or maybe 20 years too late. I was born in 78 and I feel like I missed it by just a hair, man. My brother could have been there, but rest in peace to
Right.
him.
Well,
But man,
I remember the first time I saw Exodus, they were actually headlining over Slayer, and I
yeah,
was on the road with Slayer, and it was Exodus, Slayer, Possessed, and then a band from LA called Vermin at Ruthie's Inn, the famous
nice.
Ruthie's Inn up in the Bay Area, June of '84, and I think that was Possessed's second show, so that was pretty awesome. What a great night! And I remember seeing Exodus's, like on stage security guys, a couple of them on each side of the stage, they had cattle prods. They're cattle prod in the arm. Like, yeah. I was like, God, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm 16 years old. They're doing lights for Slayer, and I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Cattle prodding the audience back into the crowd, and the Screaming Veggies were there. Like Toby Rage and Andy Airborne Anderson. They were doing their thing. Toby Rage walking across people's heads on the front of the stage. I'm
Sick. Nice.
like, I will always say that thrash metal was born in Los Angeles, but it grew up and
The
grew,
Bay Area.
spines
Yeah.
out of the Bay Area, and for reasons like that. So
Mhm.
that is pretty damn cool.
I
So,
was, I was also checking out, when for interviews, I like to like just research and then go through like the archives and watch some awesome shit. And I was sorry, I was watching the Ultimate Revenge with
right.
Dark Angel that you guys were playing, and Ron was just an animal on that show. All of you guys were raging, like just you behind the kids.
Right.
Yeah, do you remember that show?
Absolutely, man. I remember the whole day. I remember that show took place on October 23rd, 1988. I'm real. I have an affinity for dates back in the day. I can't remember what happened last month or last tour, but back, 40 years ago, I can remember that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great show. And I remember, for instance, that was the first. No, that was not the first day that I had met Chuck in person, because that was a couple of years earlier, actually. But yeah, it was great playing with Death, playing with Forbidden. That was our first time seeing Forbidden. They were the
Yeah.
the new young dudes on the scene, and
Mhm.
so Forbidden became one of my favorite bands ever. And on this run, like I I play with I got some when I was playing with Forbidden, I got some Forbidden sweatbands. I play every DETHKLOK show, every Death to All show, every with my Forbidden. I got two pairs of them from 10 years ago, and I was talking to Craig from Forbidden recently. He's like, "That's actually kind of gross. Get rid of those things." And I'm like, they're forbidden. I mean, they're
Yeah.
legends. I love Forbidden, one of my all-time favorite bands. They got sued for the first time that night, and I was like, these guys are killer. They're great. So I've had a lifelong friendship with Craig since then. So and getting to play with Raven. I mean, Raven were my
Raven.
metallic gods when I was 13. That was one of my launching off bands from the early Maiden era, all the Priest stuff.
Yeah.
Getting into the new wave of British heavy metal. And Raven,
Yeah.
proto thrash. They helped define thrash metal, absolutely. And so getting to play with those guys was great. That was super cool, man.
Mhm. How does it feel to be working with Dark Angel again? I assume that you guys are, talking about new music.
Well, we love playing together, and it's been a real blast. And I get that question a lot, and I've not intended to be as vague as I've been, but all I can say is that at some point, hopefully soon, like there's going to be some announcements and some news with dates. It's the dates that I've been just waiting on to be able to say to a lot of people that might be have keeping an eye on the Dark Angel news. I want to be able to announce some stuff. We want to be able to announce some stuff with some dates, but I
Mhm.
know there is news coming along that if you're interested in Dark Angel, it's going to make you very, very happy. So
Cool.
um, that's about the most I could say at the moment. And I'm not trying to be vague or coy or anything, but it's
I
just
totally get it, man.
it's been a while to get us to whatever point we are at now, and so I figure there's no reason to just kind of rush interest into it and then have that interest wane, because my schedule is you see,
Hectic,
I've been on the road since February, and I won't get off the road for even a couple of days until July. So that's been a lot of what's been, holding certain elements up. So there you go. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll come back to the thrash thing in a second, but yeah, on the topic of you being on the road, we covered a lot of DETHKLOK stuff yesterday, and I appreciate that. Now, I also wanted to talk to you about Death to All.
Excellent.
Yeah, you are joining Steve DiGiorgio again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, awesome shirt, amazing. Is that going to be for sale at the shows?
You know what? This is kind of an old. Let me see what this is. We do have some.
That's beautiful.
Kind of back stock of this. I know we intend on. This is one from our Latin American run. It's got a bunch of Latin American dates on the back of this one, and it's just one I grabbed out of the closet and threw it in the case before I left. And but I know that we had this one on sale over the last couple of tours. So if we have any left over, I mean, we'll probably bring them out. But we have some killer merch that we've been designing. Really, we're trying to really honor the whole concept of this tour that's coming up. So the merch is very, very focused on the tour, the Scream of Perseverance tour that we're doing. So I think for fans of Death to All, I think everybody's gonna be like, wow, kick ass. Yeah, I want one of each.
Yeah, right.
We're trying to design things that are really exciting and really, tie the whole concept together, kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. We're just trying not to. We're not just trying to. Oh, here's a T-shirt. There you go. We're trying to really honor the nights. We've got a very novel approach to this. I don't know that anybody else has done this kind of approach, at least in our level of death metal and things. But what the Scream of Perseverance tour is we're playing many shows. Many nights are 2 nights in the same town in a lot of those major markets or whatever. The first night is going to be, and I might have mentioned this in the other run, I've been talking about it quite a bit, but the first night is going to be Scream Bloody Gore in its entirety, as well as the brutal era of death, which is you got the leprosy and spiritual healing, just the more aggressive side of death. And then you got the second night will be the Sound of Perseverance in its entirety with the other, technical, melodic kind of era of death, the individual, symbolic, human, of course. And so a lot of those songs played together, and it's going to be an exciting pair of nights. And hopefully it's something that makes any Death fan just go, God, Lord, I love all of Death. I love the first album. I love the last album. There are folks that do run that whole gamut. So like, man, I don't want to miss a moment of any of it. And of course, we have our friends Cryptopsy on the run with us, and they're doing something very similar. They're playing one of their earlier records, or playing one of their later records in their entirety. So it's going to be a killer night of metal. And if you're into Death, you don't want to miss it. If you're into pretty good musicianship, you don't want to miss it. If you're into any of us as individual musicians, I mean, there's a lot for everybody. And the one thing that I mean, I know we're all heavy and brutal and death and all that kind of stuff, but the one thing that we do want to do is lift everybody's spirits, and have them walk away from there just going, man, what a great night.
Yeah.
That was even better than I was hoping for. Because we do really, and Death to All we are pretty darn entertaining. We definitely have the guys on stage are such MFers that we're able to kind of just have a little lighthearted, a little bit of levity with the whole thing. We have a good time with it. You see the band is having a good time. Like everybody comes up and says, we could see you guys having such a killer time up there. Makes us as the audience, like we get into that. And I'm like, well, that's killer, that's it's a killer back and forth all night. Woo, getting all 3D on you there.
Woo.
But yeah, so we just try to really just put a smile on everybody's face at the end of the night, just where you're like, that was killer. So that's what we're hoping for.
You've been doing the Death to All stuff for some time now. Now with the extended kind of idea of doing, the albums Was there, did you have any difficulty in like kind of, oh, I gotta remember how to play these songs again? Like, was it a bit of a challenge for you?
The I suppose kind of the challenging bit, because there are a number of the songs that we've never played before ever. Like when it comes to like the Scream Bloody Gore record, for instance, Zombie Ritual, that's a staple. And, we've been doing Infernal Death for the last couple of tours, but, over the course, when it comes to a live set, you've only got a certain amount of time to play. So you're trying to play, a couple songs from this album, a couple songs from that one, three songs from this one, three songs from that, or whatever,
Mhm.
and it's challenging to make a set list.
Sure.
So there are songs that will have never been played before. Many off Scream Bloody Gore, many off The Sound of Perseverance. We've only ever really done about 4 to 5 songs off The Sound of Perseverance before, and that's got like 8, 9 songs. Oh, it's my tech Jeff texting me. So he's right out there. But yeah, so that's it's a challenge learning the material, and both albums are equally challenging for different ways, like, but it's really fun. Like with Scream Bloody Gore, Chris Reifert, like on drums anyway. Chris Reifert was a young dude,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and just that's his first recording probably. I remember Darkness Descends for me was my first recording.
Mhm.
Both recorded by Randy Burns, the producer. And so get into that like super brutal early caveman sort of style, that's a challenge on its own.
Mhm.
Richard Christie's like just bizarre take on drums,
Yeah.
there's no rhyme or reason to a lot of what Richard did.
Yeah.
Um, and so trying to learn that's got its challenge. So, and I'm sure for the guitars, it's got the same sort of thing. I mean, these guys are such pros and champs. They learn it like amazingly. Bobby and Max, they do a great job learning all the material. And we all go back and forth, and we're always talking about this and
Mhm.
this and that, and we got our little text threads and our email threads together. So we put a lot of time into it. We definitely want to, do the songs justice, and we do, and
Sure.
that is an example. Like even back in the day, I remember Chuck used to. Chuck was always like, man, you don't have to follow what's on those early records, the Scream record or the Leprosy or Spiritual Healing or anything. And, because I really wanted to follow what Sean did on Human.
Mhm.
So, I tried to emulate that as much as I could. But Chuck was like, with the other stuff, man, just do your thing. So, try to elevate the musicianship of those albums a little bit. However, on these runs here, I'm really trying to stick as close
Yeah.
to I can to the drums that are on each recording, and and that's where just trying to pay homage to the albums themselves, the recordings themselves.
Sure.
Don't genize things. I'm not going to be putting some fluffy stuff in Scream Bloody Gore material and
Right.
Spiritual Healing and Leprosy material. I'm trying to follow
Mhm.
Billy's plan as much as I can. A lot of those songs that we do off those couple of records, they are pretty ingrained in so many years of playing my style that I'm having to de-evolve what I'm doing to pay tribute to Billy, pay tribute to Chris. So there you go.
How was the conversation when Chuck approached you about doing individual thought patterns?
That actually there was a conduit. There was Borovoy Kurgan, who runs Blabbermouth, we all know, and he was a a journalist on the scene, and we all go back with Borovoy back into the early '80s. 84. Borovoy was definitely a part of the tape trading scene and stuff, and so Borovoy was always a great go-to guy if you needed like you know Dark Angel had just kind of dissolved, and so I'd reached out to Borovoy and said, hey man, I'm about to start a new project, and might you be able to help me? Say, here's a few guys that I wouldn't mind, like trying to get, or vocals similar to these guys. And
Yeah.
so Borovoy was sending me tapes back and forth, and I was trying to get this new project off the ground. And then he had called me and said, hey man, I was just speaking with Chuck, and he's looking for a new band for the next record, and he's got a recording date that he's got to hit, and he's not going to be using the guys from the last album. So what do you say about just talking with Chuck? So I was like, wow, that's really interesting, because at that time, like, it didn't really make much of a difference to me anymore. But when we did the, what was it, the Ultimate Revenge tour together in '89, that ended up on a relatively acrimonious side between Dark Angel and Death. And so there was, whatever reasonings were just silly. Everybody was really young, and
Sure. Right.
somebody had come into the death camp that was not real good for their business side, and kind of let Death believe some things that just flat out weren't true, and there it is in the contract, like, no, whatever you guys are thinking. So anyway, it just ended up with a lot of like, screw you guys, okay, no, screw you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, interesting. Okay, well, if Chuck's into having a chat, absolutely. And when Chuck and I talked on the phone, it was like we picked up it was 2 years, water under the bridge kind of thing. We picked up the last really cool conversation that we had before, and just it had gone awry, and talking about metal, talking about all this stuff, and he started putting across the ideas of what he was trying to do with the new material, and I was like, well, that sounds really cool, man. Just he had mentioned, I've got a riff tape, let me send it to you, and he had sent that riff tape out, and I started putting. It was just guitars, he wasn't a drum programmer at that time, so he sent a riff tape out, and I just started listening to that thing. I only had a couple of weeks, when I got the tape, I was like, let's do this. So, we booked a flight, and I spent a couple of weeks just listening to it. I never jammed any of it, but I just listened to it in my bed at night and put my little drum patterns together. And I've always said that, eternally, that drums are 90% mental, 10% physical. If you can think it, you can do it, and I've come to learn that term is called visualization, and I never knew that. I'm just like, no, I can, figure I'm going to play this over here, I'm going to play this over here, and just kind of see the drum kit in front of me as I'm sitting there tapping on, I'm lying in my bed just doing this thing, like we do a little fill. That's how I figure out parts. I just tap my fingers together, and so we went out, and I went to Florida, and we started putting individual thought patterns together. And at that time, I was really like impressed with us, because we put that thing together in 3 weeks. Like, I'd only ever done Dark Angel albums, I think, and that takes months of writing, months of rehearsing with the guys, all that kind of stuff. And then we put this thing together in 3 weeks. Oh my God, Jesus. And now 3 weeks to do an album, that's adorable. Like I said, that's like, if I get 3 weeks to put time into a record, a lot of times I get the tracks and I learn the tracks on the way to the studio, kind of thing. So
that's what pros do.
It works. So
that's what pros do, man. It's like you give them the work, and it's like, here, it's work. But it's not a work. It's you still have fun with it, and you always seem to be the character of, like, you're always having fun in everything that you do. Everything that you touch just seems to, like, you have that golden touch where it's just like it's Gene. Right away that's Gene's playing.
Yeah. So thank you, Francisco. It's very cool, man.
We're talking to the Atomic Clock here, Gene Hoglan, who just did some dates with DETHKLOK. They are about to do night 2 of sharing the night with Baby Metal. We are also talking to Death to All. They're eventually going to hit the road in a few weeks, doing a mix of the whole discography, from Scream, Bloody Gore, Leprosy, Spiritual Healing, Sound of Perseverance. And you also, do you have a few minutes still? You good?
Of course, yeah. I've got time booked to do this. Absolutely.
Very, very cool. Also, before the conversation had got cut off, you were talking about some not a solo record, but you had worked on another record that you.
Yes.
Tell us about that one.
Well, it is. I've been working with a composer named Bear McCreary, and we've all worked with him. All the DETHKLOK folks have worked with him, and all that. And Bear Bear is very well known for all of his work in the TV, movie, and video game industries, where like he does all the music for like The Walking Dead, and he does the Amazon Prime the Lord of the Rings that's on Amazon Prime. He does all the music for that, and he's done music for like the video games like God of War and a number of video games.
Wow.
Huge video games. A lot of people are like, I know him through the video games. I didn't even know we did this other stuff, kind of thing. And he is all. And we did the Godzilla King of the Monsters movie. We did some work on that together, where we had the guys from DETHKLOK in. We did a cover of Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult. We had Serge Tonkian on vocals on that one. That was a really fun project. It's there in the credits of that movie, so that's pretty cool. And you know, directly after that, after we did that session, Bear had reached out and said, "Boy, it was great working with you. I'd love to work with you again somewhere in the future. So just sit tight, and I'll come up with something." And then it wasn't too long after that Bear started reaching out with some, with some material that he's been writing. He's like, and Bear is a pretty severe metalhead as well. So he sent a whole ton of material and, inquired of my interest in it, and I was listening to it, going, this is killer. Like, God dang, Bear, Jesus, this is great. Yeah, I definitely want to be a part of this. And so we started working on his solo album, which now comes out by the time this gets released, I mean, it's coming out from not very long from today. It comes out in about a week digitally. And then it comes out on May 3rd digitally, and then May 10th in hard copy. And it's called The Singularity. And it is arguably one of the best albums I've ever been involved in. The music is incredible. It's a 22 song record or something like that, 21, 22 songs. We recorded a ton of material, and the list of other people that are involved is pretty incredible. You got Serge Thompson, you got Joe Satriani, Slash, you got Rufus Wainwright and Corey Taylor from Slipknot, Jens from Meshuggah does vocals on it.
Wow.
Gaudian plays on it. Laura Christine, she's all over it. Kim Thiel from Soundgarden, he does a lead. And Guthrie Govan, and Brian Beller plays on it. And we got Brendan Small from DETHKLOK. We got Steve Bartek, from Oingo Boingo playing on it. And, and John Avila from Oingo Boingo, and playing on metal songs. It's pretty cool. And like I've been saying that, for anybody that might not be, if it's not on anybody's radar, it is going to be, definitely. It's for those who are like, say, into the Devon material, or Strapping Young Lad, or DETHKLOK, or some of the more bombastic, over the top stuff that I do. This is kind of for them, and the music itself just runs the gamut. I mean, it's from brutal metal to gorgeous, beautiful songs that are weighty, and there's just a gravitas to them. There's just this gravity and just heaviness, like, oh, so good. Like all these songs are really killer. So The Singularity, it's coming out real soon. We've been working on it for quite some time, and that is also going to entail an album release show that happens on May 12th at the Henry Fonda Theater.
On the way.
And yeah, that's in Los Angeles, and that's going to be a killer show. If anybody's got nothing going on that Sunday night, come on down.
I'll be there.
No, excellent, man. That's going to be killer. So it's going to be a very exciting night. It's going to be our very first show ever. So you never know what could happen. But there's going to be some guest appearances that are going to be like, holy crap, Jesus, that's really cool. A lot of folks from the album. So it's very exciting, and the material's super. It's amazing. This is arguably one of the best albums I've ever been involved in, like I was saying, and
cool.
It's just it's going to be killer. The production on the album is over the top heavy. It's probably the best sounding album I've ever been involved in. It is huge. So it's really exciting. I'm excited about it. So I'm very fortunate to have all these like kick-ass little things going on all right around.
Yeah. Yeah. It must feel good like after since like the lockdown where like there was nothing happening and then all of
Sure.
a sudden the floodgates open up and then like okay, what do I get into? What do I want to do first,
All
you know?
right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You gotta practice a lot of patience and just be like, okay, let me do this first. I'll line this up next, and then where do I go from there? I don't know, right?
Indeed, yeah, that's how it worked. And I did not spend the lockdown like sitting on my hands at all. I got directly into live streaming because I'm like, I got to figure out how to keep my chops up. You never know how
Mm.
long this thing's going to go.
Yeah,
I'm reading that
I keep
historically
busy too,
pandemics last for 4 years, and I'm like, okay, you got to come up with some kind of revenue stream, a way to keep your chops going, and all that. So
mentally sane too.
absolutely, yeah. So I got into live streaming on Twitch, and while that
Yeah.
was a really active streaming platform, it was amazing. Just getting to play a lot of drums and pretty much have a stream of consciousness conversation with myself and like the audience for like 4 hours a day. I'm just babbling off the top of my head on anything, and it was really entertaining. It was really fun, and I kind of based my Twitch live streams on some on the clinics that I would do, the drum clinics I would do. Where I do a lot of talking, do a lot of drumming, and none of it is planned. There's never been a clinic that I've ever planned anything out. I might know some of the songs I'm going to play, but I have no idea what I'm going to talk about.
Mhm.
Every morning on Twitch, every day on Twitch, I had no idea what the day was going to lead into, and
Right.
so that's pretty cool. So
Yeah, watching you play is certainly a clinic, and like I said, I was researching, and then I was last night watching your DVD, The Atomic Clock. Your playing, I think, at the time was way ahead of the curve, way ahead of the times. You were doing things where a lot of drummers nowadays like tote and boast about, but when you were doing these things like way back in the day, and your technique and everything, the double rides and the double crashes, man, it's like just amazing sound that comes from your playing, man. So, yeah.
well, thank you, Francisco. I appreciate that. Thank you. That was I know that kind of that kind of philosophy sort of. I remember going to a clinic from our dearly departed friend Dom Famularo. I remember going to a clinic of his back in 1993, and he had mentioned that yeah, drummers steal. There's only a certain amount that and so yeah, so definitely steal. You're gonna steal. You're gonna let your influences show, and
Mhm.
that's
Sure.
let that flow. And then I was like, that's okay. I get that because I let my influences show. But I always started thinking, how can I elevate what I'm doing? If I'm gonna steal from these crop of amazing drummers, you got to put something back into the pot. If you're going to take something out, you got to put something in. So that's why I was always just trying to think in terms of maybe like what is something that might like a beat or an approach or a something that hasn't been done before or to death, or pull in this influence from that music that is not heavy metal, like say a bembe beat from Steve Gadd off the Casino record from Al Di Meola, that kind of thing. Instead of just going just try to are always interesting to me, and just the little spikes in the riffs are always, like the machine gun sort of, like I play guitar too, so if I can write a pattern on the drums and write a pattern on guitar, that kind of thing, that I'm like, well, hey, I don't think anybody's ever done that before. So hey, that could be a Dark Angel thing. That's our little approach. And so I'm just always trying to think of ways that I can just
Yeah.
try something. Originality is something that's very, very important to me. Like try not to sound,
Sure.
just be an individual. Try not to sound like a whole bunch of other people, So
Mhm.
you there might be people that go, oh, I don't like that approach. But as long as
Well,
you I don't care, like
yeah.
this. Nobody's ever done this before. I'm going to try this. Yay. It
Yeah.
makes me happy. So there you go.
That's awesome. Very cool. Also, before we had got cut off yesterday, we were like, you kind of touched on the subject about the connection that you and Dave Lombardo had, how you had influenced him, and the history behind that. You talked about like how you kind of an influence on him on his double bass, and that he proposed to take you on the road, I believe you said.
Well, that was one little conversation that we had, because I was just kind of, I've always had an aptitude for drumming. That's been my passion since I was a kid. So it was always pretty easy for me to sit behind the kit and like already be there. And I definitely attribute that to my years of air drumming, before I ever got on a kit. I mean, I'm a serious air drummer. Like that's how I learned how to play drums, by
Oh, yeah.
putting the record on, playing along to Rush, playing along to Pat Travers Go For What You Know, the live album, playing to all, UK and King Crimson and Raven and just all these killer bands that I was into, and just air drumming and like giving myself little lessons, trying to figure out what is Neil Peart playing. I understand the hands, I understand the beat, I understand the snare, I understand the fills. So that's some of that visualization stuff, I guess. So when you get on the kit, you've already been doing this, so it's just like go back to your bedroom and the invisible drum kit that you've been playing, now it's visible, and just play that. And so having that sort of thing going on, hi there, having that sort of thing going on was always, yeah, if you need to come through, by all means. That was our production manager, Stephen Looker. That's pretty fun.
Hey, Steven.
Hi, Stephen. But yeah, there's having that sort of approach just allowed me to just be a few more steps ahead of where I should have been. If I had the woodshed on the drums for days and months and weeks, I'd already done that. Just I didn't have a drum kit in front of me. So when Dave was asking, when I was able to sit behind his kit and go, you're trying to do this, right? He's like, yeah, I'm just not getting it. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, and that's what I was saying. I'm concentrating on my left foot. I'm making sure that that's coming down because I'm an open-handed player even back then. So I'm like, left foot, left hand, right foot, right hand. Make sure that's all just coming out evenly, and and not just but up, they go kind of thing. He's like, well, that's been my biggest issue, and so I'm like, well, concentrate on your left foot. He's like, yes, I'm going to do that. And so these were just things that I'm coming up with them off the top of my head. Well, here's what I'm doing over here. He's like, okay, great, I'll take that. And so I just kind of coached him through a bunch of stuff. And I remember being at the Haunting the Chapel sessions, and I'm coaching him through stuff. I'm like, I got my, I'm the drums are right there on the other side. I'm in the bathroom, with the door just kind of poking open just a little bit. I'm like, concentrate on your left foot. He's like, yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah. And just come out to my left hand. And he's like, yeah, you got it. And here he is tracking at the time one of the most amazing double bass songs ever, Haunting the Chapel. I mean, that is a landmark song right there. There's no slouch on the double bass having to do that. And so. So he had, just when we had hit the road, he at the end of somewhere during the run, he had said, well, hey man, would you be interested in sticking around and maybe being my drum tutor, and just help me get to that kind of next level. And I was like, that is a very kind and generous offer. Thank you, Dave. But here I'm, like I was saying, I'm 16 years old. I ain't getting any younger. So I want to be doing what you're doing. I want to be in a band, and I want to start road and playing gigs. And I had never played a gig at that point in my life. So and that led pretty relatively soon afterwards. I ended up joining Dark Angel, another one of the bands on the LA scene, playing tons of shows with Slayer.
And you were credited on one of the Slayer records, I think, if I'm not mistaken, right? I
did. I made my vinyl debut on Show No Mercy, the second thrash metal album ever. Woo, that's pretty fun. And it was a song, Evil Has No Boundaries. And right, that I told this story many, many times where it was before, and you could probably see these on like YouTube, these versions. Like you would see Jeff and Carrie on stage would both have a mic, and it was like, it was like, evil, my words defy evil. It wasn't super demonic or heavy, but got the word across. And so it was getting time for Jeff and Carrie to go do their background vocals for the song. And I remember there was Tom and Carrie sitting on a couch. And I was like, hey guys, have you ever considered like getting like a gang of dudes together and just have everybody like chant evil, And they looked at each other. Great idea. no time like the present. Everybody get
Right.
the vocal booth, everybody who's here. And they just happen to have a number of friends there that day. So we had, we all hit the vocal booth, and Johnny Araya was telling me just on one of those last runs that we did with Slayer, he's like, do you remember that they didn't have enough headphones? So we only had one headphone. So, I flipped the headphones out. And so, and I'm holding them with the headphones right there in my hand, and we're hearing the song, and I was like, God, that's right, I remember that. And I remember coming out of the vocal booth, and I just happened to say, I sang Devo, and Hammond's right next to me, and he's like, I sang Weebles. And I swear to God, if you jab those ear bros in your head and you can listen,
Yeah, man.
like I
It's
swear
gonna stay stuck in my head now.
and you hear a guy going Weebles. So
that's gonna stay stuck in my head now. Thank you for that. Yeah,
right.
and I just did like laundry too, so look, Slayer.
Oh yeah, there you go, darn tootin'. Right on.
Yeah, stack of metal shirts here for days, man. But Gene,
Right.
it's been a pleasure to talk to you, bro, and I thank you so much for your time, for understanding with the technical issues here.
I get it. No worries.
DETHKLOK, Metalocalypse, Night 2, San Francisco. Hit that. Death to All, about to hit the road. Definitely going to be there for that. And what was the album again?
That is Bear McCreary, The
Bear
Singularity.
Singularity.
Boy, that's gonna just blow your mind. The drumming is killer on it. Every musician.
Yeah. And I'll have all the information here and like the descriptions. I'll try and put out the links there for everybody to check out. And I'll definitely see you there May 12th at the Fonda in LA. So
badass, cool. Francisco. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Anything you want to say to your legion out there, or followers, before we go?
Well, everybody, thank you so much for just all your support throughout the years, and thank you for just taking an interest in anything I or we or anything have done. And I hope to see everybody on the road, definitely with this Death to All run. I mean, that's going to be a kick-ass fun night. Do not be the person the next day that gets the phone call from all your friends going, "Where were you? Oh my God!" Like, you don't want to miss that show. It's going to be a kick-ass night. And I'm looking at myself in a little thingy down here. I'm like, God, look how much like Ace Frehley you look like. It's like,
I do.
I had this look forever. Hey, you look like that. Look, Ace Frehley, I tell you.
It all comes back to Kiss somehow, man. Yeah.
I've seen pictures of Ace Frehley recently, and I'm like, I don't remember doing that interview. And it's like, no, it's actually Ace Frehley, because I just see the picture, and I'm like, I don't remember talking to that guy. And it's like, Ace Frehley does an interview. I'm like, you're taking my look, buddy.
I've gotten mistaken for a Tom Araya a couple of times when I'm out and about.
Holy moly, that's crazy. That's pretty crazy, man. I'll take that. Hell yeah, man. Legend.
Gene, Atomic Clock. It's been a pleasure, brother. I will see you soon in LA, and have a killer show tonight. Hails and horns to the whole DETHKLOK, Brendan Small, and everybody, and Baby Metal as well.
Right on.
Cool, and have a killer time. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, my man. Thank you, Francisco. Take care.